Welcome back. Today I want you to imagine something. Imagine you're standing at the base of a massive mountain. And it's enormous, steep, intimidating, and completely impossible to ignore. Now imagine you've been climbing this mountain your entire life. Every day, every week, every year. You've been exhausted by it, you've been frustrated by it, and sometimes you've been defeated by it. And somewhere along the way, you accepted this sentence: life is hard. But what if I told you life may not be the mountain? What if the mountain's not outside of you, but it's inside of you? Because here's what I've learned about myself and others. Most people aren't being stopped by life. They're being stopped by their relationship with life. They're being stopped by fear, by doubt, by the insidious issue of perfectionism, by old stories that they've taken on, and by invisible rules, even by outdated identities. And the exhausting thing about internal mountains is no one can see them. No one sees the battle. No one sees the conversations happening inside your head. No one sees the war. But you do. Every single moment of every single day. The voice says, what if I fail? What if I never succeed? What if they judge me? What if I'm not enough? What if I'm not ready? What if I embarrass myself? What if I can't do it? And suddenly, you stop. Not because life stopped you, but because fear did. The obstacle is not life. The obstacle is the lens through which we see life. Think about that. The obstacle here is not life. The obstacle is the lens through which you see life. Because two people can stand in front of the exact same opportunity and see completely different things. One sees possibility. They see the possibility in the situation. One sees, yes, it'll be struggle, but I grow through it. The other sees risk. One sees an opportunity. The other sees proof they're not enough. Same life, different lens, different mountain. And in the end, a different future. You know, there's this thing, this invisible exhaustion that happens. And I'm actually on the edge of this right now with my podcast, with all the stuff I'm putting out there. Because it's not gaining traction. And I start to question if anything I'm putting out there is landing anywhere and helping anyone. So let's be honest. You are tired. I'm tired. Sometimes physically, but not specifically physically, but more emotionally, mentally, maybe even spiritually. Because fighting yourself, fighting the possibility, fighting the dream of your future is exhausting. It's exhausting to wake up every day arguing with your own potential. Think about how much energy you spend saying, I'm tired, I'm behind, I'm not ready, I'm not enough, I'm not qualified, I'm too old, I'm too late. I should have started years ago. I should have been there by now. That's exhausting. And the hardest part, most people don't even realize they're doing that. They're having that internal argument. They think that's just what's so or who they are. They don't realize it's an argument that they could change, because the negative thoughts, they're very automatic, right? And automatic thoughts that you encourage and you repeat becomes identity. See, the mountain grows every time you stop questioning it. Because many of you have been climbing the same mountain for 20 years, 10, 5, 10, 20, it doesn't matter. Not because it got bigger, but because it got more familiar. And something familiar can feel true, but familiar isn't always true. You know, I think back, if you've heard a lot of the podcasts, you'll know that I'm dyslexic. But I didn't find out till I was 26. So I just scraped through high school, just barely. And my spelling and reading and comprehension was pretty hard and low. Like my reading speed was so slow. It was like my brain would throw in other words, and my spelling was awful. But the funny thing is, if I really paid attention to what was actually going on, that I would write something, spell it properly. It would look wrong, so I'd cross it out and I'd spell it how it looks right, and that was always wrong. And so I didn't think I was very smart, so I kept on. I avoided going to university or college. I just went right into the workforce because I'm not smart enough. And that's the life I lived for a very long time. And it's funny, even when I found out I was dyslexic and had a reason why things didn't work as well as they could have, it didn't change the mountain in front of me that I'm not smart enough. So I lived this until I hit a wall, because part of me really knew that I was here to make a difference, and that the only way to really make a difference was to go and get certification of some sort. Yet I wasn't smart enough. So I never went back to school until life put me so deep into a corner that I had no option. There was no out anymore, which was the most amazing thing that ever happened. The hardest and most troubling moments in your life are the ones that the potential to skyrocket into something that you never imagined is so alive in those moments. And don't get me wrong, they're not hard. It's not that they're not hard, and you don't feel like you're being crushed in the moment. But those are the things that move you forward. So I ended up finally, almost like out of desperation, I found what I needed to go back to school for. And even in those moments, the mountain was still, I'm not smart enough. But what I actually developed in that moment was a fundamental truth I knew about myself. I am the hardest working person you'll ever meet. I'm not afraid to work hard. I'm not afraid to work a ton. Like right now, I work 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. I'm not afraid. And I know, even though I had this thought in my mind that I wasn't intelligent, that didn't matter. My intellect didn't matter, because I would work so hard that it wouldn't be an option anymore. It wouldn't be an issue anymore. And yeah, I hit the honor roll right through. Yeah, it was the fact. It wasn't the fact that I pretended I was smart, because the truth is I'm probably way more intelligent than I ever thought, because like my memory is amazing and such. It was just that mountain was so big that I had to grit down and start climbing and climb as hard as I could. And I made it. So this is just a thought. A lot of times I love it. I did a course and they said, listen, I'm going to propose something to you. And I like a lot of times we judge where we agree, disagree, um, where it's right or wrong. And what I'd like you to do, and this is what they did in this course, it was amazing. So it's like, you don't really say you go to try and check a new jacket out. You don't really understand that jacket until you put it on and try it and wear it around a while. And if it doesn't feel right to you, well, then go get another jacket, but give it an opportunity to see how it fits, how it feels. Is it warm? So here's an idea. I'm going to talk about the 4 invisible mountains, and let's identify them. Mountain 1, the fear of failure. You think failure is dangerous, but failure isn't dangerous. Identity attached to failure is dangerous. I'm watching these videos on TikTok, and this coach, this British coach, and he's always talking. I guess he's training really, really skilled soccer players, and I've seen him talk to a few of these young girls that are, they're out training with these elite young girls who are 2 or 3 years older than them, and he's like, I need you to fail. It's like, I need you to fail. I need you to get out there and work hard, and I need you to fail again and again and again. Because the only way you can get better in this life is through failure. Through failure, understanding that it's not the end of the world, and moving through. Because the only real failure in life is not trying. Failure says I tried. Identity says I'm a failure. They're not the same thing. Mountain number 2, the fear of success. And this one does surprise people, and it surprised me at one point because success creates change. Once you start having success, it's expected that you have more. Success creates visibility. The better you get, the higher you're raised on the soapbox. Because sometimes people aren't afraid of failing. They're afraid of success. Sometimes your fear is not about losing. Sometimes it's about becoming unfamiliar to yourself. Albert Einstein said, the mind, once stretched by a new concept, never goes back to its original dimensions. And think about if you're having this safe life that's predictable, and there's a chance of fear all the time, but you're not playing at such a level that the fear would be out in front of the world. And imagine that you break down that barrier. It's a new concept. Because I believe not just a new success, a new physical pursuit, all this stretches us. Imagine the scariness of ending up on the world field, and being the slowest person in a heat because you have gained enough success to be there. And imagine how terrifying that is. You're going to get on that field with people who are probably your heroes. It's understandable if you're afraid of success. But remember always, fear, it's a mile wide, but it's only an inch deep. And when you stand on the edge of fear without taking action, moving into it, it's going to seem unsurmountable. And the longer you stay there, the more afraid you're going to be. But as soon as you step in, the moment you step into that fear, you're going to see how shallow it really is. Number 3, perfectionism. Perfectionism is not excellence. Perfectionism is protection. It says, if I never make mistakes, I can't be judged. It might say, if I never make mistakes, if I'm perfect, I will be loved. And perfectionism, I believe, is a spectrum, right? Some people are on the obsessive compulsive edge where everything has to be actually perfect and clean and wonderful, right? And all the dust gone. Have you ever met one of those, or are you? And I'm on the other end of the spectrum where I know no matter what, it will never be perfect. So I use perfectionism so much in my life to not even try because I knew I'd never get there. So what's the point in even trying? Perfectionism is a mountain. And number 4, imposter syndrome. This is your 4th mountain. The voice that says, you don't belong here. But here's the truth. Nobody belongs at the beginning. There's a quote I heard that says, everybody is awful on the first try. Nobody is awful on the 1,000th. Everybody learns. Everybody stumbles. Everybody grows. Confidence isn't proof. Confidence is repetition. Your greatest opponent is often an outdated version of yourself. You know, I remember back when I went back to school, and I was literally living imposter syndrome. I was averaging 91% each term, but I spent my whole life hiding in the background, in the back of the class, pretending, keeping my head down so nobody would see me, because if they ever really saw who I was, they'd realize that I didn't belong there, and they called me out. See, now, imposter syndrome is my friend because it tells me the more I know, the more there is to know. And I don't use that as something to crush me and debilitate me. I use it to work harder and harder and harder in understanding what I need to do to be really good and continue being really good and learn and find new ways. Think about it. What are you protecting yourself from? And this could be the most important question of the entire episode. Listen, what are you protecting yourself from? Because every single mountain exists for a reason. Your fear protects you from embarrassment. Your perfectionism protects you from criticism. Your overthinking protects you from uncertainty. Your procrastination protects you from disappointment. Do you see it? The mountain, just like your internal critic, your inner dialogue. It isn't evil. It's protective. The problem is the protection has become excessive. You know, the internal critic, it's just trying to protect you, but it does that by keeping you small. And if you want to do anything amazing in this world, you just cannot listen to it. Think about how excessive this protection is. Imagine wearing winter gear in the middle of summer. And that's what many people are doing emotionally. They're overthinking inside the armor they no longer need. The armor that once saved you may now be slowing you down. And here's what's beautiful. You don't have to destroy the armor. You can simply put it down. I remember having this visualization of me as a child and all the things I went through and all the things I used to protect myself. It was like building armor, right? A shield, a sword, a helmet, gauntlets, arm protectors, chest plate, leg planks, the whole bit. And all this armor kept me so far away from everything in this life. It was protection to never get close. Nobody could really see the real me because I was protected by my armor. And I realized at one point that I wanted connection, but I also wanted to be safe. But I didn't understand what I was trying to be safe from. And I realized if I really ever wanted to connect at all with me, with this life, become who I'm meant to be, I need to drop the sword, drop the shield. And I imagine myself in a painting of a cobblestone road. And you look on one end of the painting, you see the sword laying in the middle of the road, and then the shield, and then pieces of armor all the way up this hill. And you see this young child at the top of the hill walking into the sunset, free of armor. You could just change the lens. I want to give you a framework. Whenever resistance appears, use these 4 questions. Question 1, what am I afraid of? What are you afraid of? Question 2, what am I protecting myself from? Or what is my inner critic protecting me from? Question 3, is this danger real or remembered? A lot of things that we're afraid of are things that happened in the past. And our inner critic, our ego said, never going to let that happen again. And then it did everything so you wouldn't put yourself in the same situation again. Question 4, who would I become if I trusted myself anyway? Write those down. Repeat them often. Because awareness changes everything. You cannot heal what you cannot see. Change the lens, and the mountain changes too. Because here's what happened. The mountain shrinks, not because life changes, but because perception changes. And perception creates experience. Albert Einstein said it both. What you focus on expands. You focus on what you're learning expands. Okay, let's close. Take a breath. I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. What internal mountain am I climbing every day? What am I protecting myself from? And what becomes possible if I stop fighting myself? Sit there. Because some of you, today is the first time you realized the battle was never with life. The battle was internal. And if it's internal, it can change. Your greatest opponent is often an outdated version of yourself. And how about this? The obstacle is not life. The obstacle is the lens through which you see life. And finally, change the lens, and the mountain changes too. Because the mountain was never there to defeat you. It was there to reveal you. It was there to reveal your courage, your resilience, your strength, and reveal your capacity. And one day, you'll turn around and you'll look back and you'll realize the mountain didn't disappear. You simply became bigger than the mountain. Because life was never asking you to become fearless. Life was asking you to become aware enough to stop fighting yourself, aware enough to trust yourself, aware enough to choose yourself again and again and again. And if no one has reminded you recently, I will. You are stronger than your fear. You're wiser than your doubt. And you're bigger than your old identity. And you're more capable than the mountain you've been climbing. Because that mountain is not in front of you. It's inside you. And that means you have the power to move it. Thanks for spending this time with me again. Keep moving those internal mountains and keep building your own inner advocate. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Your Inner Advocate, a podcast by Kimen Petersen, formerly Conversations with Kimen. If you found value in today's episode, please follow, like, and share the podcast with someone who you think may benefit from it. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and connect on Instagram at your_inner_advocate. Until next time, keep listening to and developing your inner advocate.